As we work our way through these accounts of Jesus' ministry on earth, it can be pretty easy to get caught up in the power of God displayed in Jesus in the flesh. Of course, it can be equally easy to get overwhelmed at the compassion that he showed as a human being, a man who faced the same struggles in life that we all face. Sure, the circumstances of those struggles have changed over the last 2,000 years, but the basic struggles of life are still the same. Today's lesson does a great job of showing us the balance between those two different views of Jesus. See, the story starts off with Jesus telling his disciples, "Let us cross over to the other side." He's talking about the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is not really a sea by our modern definition. It's actually a big lake, about 13 miles long, 8 miles wide. See, he had spent his entire day teaching, and he was exhausted. You can read a lot of commentary on the details of this account, but here's the obvious truth. When Jesus tells his disciples to start the journey, they didn't take time to find a good meal or a place to let Jesus rest up from the day's work before they set sail. The text says that they took Jesus as he was and launched the boat. Jesus falls asleep. As a matter of fact, the story is even recorded with such detail that it tells us he was asleep on a pillow in the rear of the boat. The short story is this. Jesus tells his disciples it's time to go, and they respond immediately. It's like they saw the fatigue on his face and said, "Let's get him out of here." This account goes on to say that some other small boats followed along. Now, put yourself in the scene for a minute. Jesus has been teaching and performing miracles all day long. This guy, who obviously has the wisdom and the power to solve any problem you're facing or any problem you're gonna face, is headed out on a boat, and you have the chance to tag along. Yeah, you're gonna do your dead level best to follow that boat wherever it goes. Then the story takes a quick turn. A storm blows up, not a normal storm, not the kind of wind that's common in the late afternoon or evening on this lake. This is different. This storm is so violent that the waves are coming over the bow and the sides of the boat and filling it up. They're sinking. The next part of this story always strikes me as odd when I read it. When the panicked disciples wake Jesus up, they act like he's unaware of the circumstance, or worse yet, that he just doesn't care that they're gonna die. Now, as an aside to this story, although the text doesn't address it directly, you have to know that all the people in those little boats that decided to follow Jesus for the benefits that he could offer, they're facing the same storm. As a matter of fact, they're probably in even worse shape because they're following in little boats. But I'll leave that bit of information for you to work out. I just wanted to point out that everyone who decided to follow Jesus that day was facing a life and death difficulty. These were Jews that believed that the sea represented a portal to the underworld. It's as if hell itself was reaching up to swallow them whole. Jesus wakes up from his much-needed sleep, and he does two things. First, he screams at the storm, and it immediately quiets. And in case you're just reading through this story a little too quickly, I want you to stop there and ask yourself a question. What would your reaction be if a tornado or a hurricane were about to hit your home and destroy you and your whole family, and a guy walked outside and yelled, "Shut up!" and the whole thing stopped? That's the deity of Jesus. The second thing that Jesus does is rebuke his disciples. He's not mad that they woke him up. He's angry at the fact that they forgot one simple, immovable truth. And to find it, we have to go back to the start of our story. Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us cross over to the other side." It was Jesus' idea to make the journey. It was Jesus who had business to attend to on the other side. Yes, the forces of hell were reaching up to stop the work of God on earth, and the strategy was simple. If the storm could instill enough fear in the hearts of the disciples, they might turn around and keep the hope of salvation away from the person on the other side of the lake who needed it most. You see, Jesus is headed for the region of the Gadarenes, and he's going to have an encounter with a man who's possessed by a legion of demons. Jesus wasn't just getting away from the crowd that he'd been teaching. Jesus was on a specific mission to save a specific person, and the whole thing was his idea. The disciples were just along for the ride. So that leaves us with some simple questions. The life you're living today, is it on the path that Jesus instructed you to take? Did you take time to ask Him today exactly where He would like to go? And then offer yourself as a living sacrifice, the vessel of His gospel that could take Him there. If Galatians 2:20 is true, then we are now the vessels through which Jesus lives and works. So where does He want to go? Who does He want to encounter? And when the forces of hell whip up a storm that seems like it will end your life, will you turn around and head for safe harbor? Or accuse God of not even caring that your life is in peril? Or do what the disciples should have done in the first place and face the storm with absolute faith that the outcome of the journey is in the hands of God, the one whose idea it was to set sail in the first place. Let's find a way today to worship the captain of our voyage in spite of the wind and the waves, remembering that both the journey and the outcome are completely in His hands.